right, hello everyone. It's great to be here. My name is Yael Pearl. I'm a partner at Oric. I'm a partner at our Silicon Valley office. Oric is a full-service law firm. We work with over 4,000 startup companies and hundreds of investors, including CVCs, which is why it's so exciting to be here today. I also co-lead our energy tech practice, and in that capacity, I'm very excited to be interviewing Dan Carter, who is a managing director at Aramco Ventures. So Dan has been named one of the top investors by GCV about 5 years ago. Dan has been a venture capitalist for about 21 years, first 10 years as a financial GP, and then last 11 years with Aramco Ventures, where he was one of the first hires in North America. So if you think about energy as a 2x2 grid with electrons and molecules on one side, and then fossil and non-fossil on the other side, Dan is a rare investor who has invested in all four quadrants. Earlier this year, Saudi Aramco boosted its ventures investment by $4 billion additional dollars, more than doubling its existing fund to $7 billion in the aggregate. So first of all, congratulations on that, Dan. It's great to have you here.
I'll take full credit for that.
I think we're going to talk about that too. So $7 billion is a very, very impressive amount. I think we'd all love to hear about the Aramco story, the history, and the different funds, and how you deploy $7 billion. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Okay, well, thank you for having me here, and it's great to be at the GCV conference. Wonderful community we're building here. I've got a couple of colleagues in the audience. I know Kip and Asif are here. If you guys could just stand up and wave your hands so that people can come and find you afterwards. Anupam, is he here? Probably out networking in the hall, which is good. So yeah, let's talk about the journey. So we started out as a $500 million fund and have progressively grown it over the past 10, 11 years. And it sort of mirrors the journey of probably a lot of funds that have been working on this. First, it was about being better, faster, cheaper, smarter, improving our core operations. So really how to refine and get the most out of the reservoirs. It then grew, and I'd say around 2015 or so, we started working on quote unquote big data. Great topic. And did some good software investments. It led us to thinking about a broader tech focus, diversifying potentially outside of pure hydrocarbon business. So that led to Prosperity 7, where Asif is here in the house. Prosperity 7, the name comes from the professor at Stanford, Max Steinecke, who discovered oil in Saudi Arabia, drilled 6 test wells, and the 7th well he drilled discovered commercial oil, and they called it the Prosperity Well. So the company is about 75 years old. We're thinking about what should the next 75 years hold in store for us. And so if there is a thought about potentially diversifying at some point in the future, creating options and learning is part of what that fund does. So that was $1 billion. So we went from $500 million to 1.5 with that step. And then bit more than a year ago, we started our sustainability fund. Our first sustainability report was in 2022. We have ambitions when it comes to zero carbon, and that added another 1.5 billion. So we went from 1.5 at that point to 3. The portfolio has been doing all right, and the ambition was greater for our team, and we built it then. Prosperity 7's $1 billion has largely been allocated for Fund 1, so part of that is a re-up for Fund 2. So they have plenty of capital, and then we now have a growth pocket of several $1 billion to be able to make investments that are in the range of 100 to 200 million. So our mandate keeps getting broader. So that's been the journey, and it's been a lot of fun to be part of that.
Yeah, that's a lot of growth. Very exciting. So we know you're focused on climate, as you said. Could you tell us more about the technologies specifically in climate that you're looking at, and any other areas of technology that you're interested in?
Yeah, sure. So the sweet spot for us is really the corporate ambition is to get to a net zero position in our scope 1 and 2. And so anything that supports that when it comes to bringing efficiency to upstream, midstream, downstream, and then also on the customer side, delivering more options to customers in terms of carbon intensivity. So looking at e-fuels, sustainable aviation fuels, ammonia, methanol, hydrogen as an input to the refining system to decarbonize conventional fuels, or hydrogen in and of itself. So I think there's that. There's also things like methane detection and prevention, methane leak, fugitive emissions. So anything that kind of like helps our system to get to a net zero position is really the sweet spot. I think some of the hardest to decarbonize aspects of any business in any industry, and I think that would probably resonate and land with pretty much everyone in the room here, can be very expensive. So you may end up thinking about other solutions, so carbon market solutions and voluntary carbon credits, also renewable energy certificates for procurement for the scope 1 and 2 is part of the story. So that's what we're focused on. And then, of course, we have the Digital Industrial Fund, which still is looking at better, faster, cheaper, smarter, and safer. And we're making investments in that field.
Interesting. And are you finding a lot of the technologies that you're interested in the US mostly, or is it kind of global? Or if global, where are you finding these companies?
Yeah, we're a global fund. I should say we're hiring. So if anyone's interested, all the way through from analyst through to senior investment director. About 2/3 of our activity historically has been, or dollars put to work, and actually deal count has been in North America. And then the remainder has been in Europe. We now have a very small presence in China that we're growing. And so it is a global fund by mandate, but I think we're looking at where the opportunity set is, where the entrepreneurs are, where the capital is, and the ability to grow, large businesses that have great financial outcomes. So it's still, the majority is the US, and that's, we don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
It's interesting. And so when you approach companies that you want to invest in, what's the value add, or what's the Aramco story that you tell that goes beyond the check size, and what gets you, what wins you deals, basically? Yeah,
I mean, we need to be able to offer something to the entrepreneur that's special. Otherwise, why would they take our money in situations that are competitive? It's the same for everyone in the room here. And I think it will be very similar to all of you all in the audience. Revenue is a big thing we can deliver, and that's a very frequent thing we can deliver. It could be joint development, it could be go-to-market, partnerships, but frequently it's really being a lighthouse customer, and also a customer maybe as companies kind of develop and iterate their products. So, I should mention, in addition, on the digital industrial side, we do quite a lot of cybersecurity investing, and so we've done 8 or 10 investments in that space. And so we're a great logo to have, for instance, and we've witnessed the land and expand motion happen, to great effect in our company. So I think there's that signaling power of having a large corporate that, again, you all have the similar situation and can kind of deliver value there. So that's something we're working on every day.
And I know we were talking a little bit outside before about sort of the state of the market right now. So I'm wondering if there's something unique about Aramco or CVCs generally that's helpful in where we are in the market in terms of its cyclical nature and where we were in 2023 with the market being a little bit more challenging.
We're a little bit of a different company than some in the audience in terms of our size and also in terms of our profitability. So the core parent business has an advantaged gross margin position. And last year, for example, we generated $238 billion of EBITDA. And it does fluctuate, obviously, but it fluctuates potentially a little bit less than some of the businesses in the room. We're in a really privileged position of super long-term strategic thinking. I've never seen it before, where we really have long-term goals that we're executing towards, and we don't have to waver in terms of our strategy when we're setting it out to look at how do we get to net zero, what kinds of investments are needed, sort of looking out there into the future and working your way back, thinking about what needs to happen. And so we're a little bit insulated in the sense that the strategy's been set, the process has been set, and we're able to execute on that. It is obviously a difficult time in terms of valuations and, smaller first-time managers not being able to raise again, and we're all aware of all those difficulties. The only thing I would say is we're in a pretty good position ourselves in terms of being able to execute on a long-term through-cycle plan, and just reminding ourselves of basics of behavioral finance that we all are aware of, in the sense that we are all living in the moment. So recency bias, we just wear it every day. There's nothing you can do about recency bias, but very frequently, when things are very bad, they're probably not as bad as you think. And then when things are very, very good, they're probably not as good as you think either. And just sort of reminding yourself of biases that we have living, with these recency biases and other behavioral biases sort of grounds me personally and a little bit our team as well.
Is there any one particular bias that you say you see a lot of people kind of trip over and you'd suggest that we ignore?
Well, I think recency bias is the one, things are terrible, everything's falling in, and so therefore, I need to behave, differently because of that. I do think that there is, if I can just change the topic a little bit to valuation for a second. So there's this sort of, in climate tech, can be a huge pop from sort of early seed to the A, and then then what happens, right? Then what happens in terms of progress, and how do you validate that next round based on metrics that you're looking at, sort of anchoring points to say, yeah, and here's why the next valuation is as it is. I think a healthy exercise is to sort of start at the end and work your way back. So, who's the buyer of this company? How do they make acquisitions normally? What basis and metrics do they use to pay? Is it an EBITDA multiple or revenue, or what is it that they use, accretion dilution considerations? And so ability to pay and history of what they're paying for, is really important, because these pops you see, companies that are pre-revenue trading at $1 billion valuation, working your way back from them to the actual trade buyers, you get to the empty set quite frequently because of that early pop. And so I think that's working its way through the system, but sometimes people kind of forget the mechanics of the exit. So, yeah.
And so what's your sort of sweet spot in terms of investing? Is it very early, very late? Is it in the middle? It sounds like maybe it's a little on the early, a little on the late.
I'm laughing because, when you're have the fund size to put to work that we do, you have to play in multiple fields. So we really have kind of 4 buckets that we're investing in. We do a very limited number of fund investments, just seeding the ecosystem and sort of working with our investor friends. So we've made 5 LP commitments in North America. Last year we may make sort of a few more, but we're really not a fund business. We're a direct investor. So that's a small pocket. We are have made a couple of seed investments, and I think it's a learning process for a corporate, and getting faster, lighter weight is the direction of travel for us. But I think we're going to be doing more in seed. Like I said, sort of taking advantage of that arbitrage, I would say. And then we do the straight up, A's and B's rounds where we could lead, we could follow. We're pretty flexible. And then the final piece is the growth piece. And our growth used to be called 25 to 75 million, and now it has expanded up to 200 million. We're a minority investor always. We're not consolidating any of our investments on our balance sheet. And and so our mindset is also partnering. It's not a control attitude, and we haven't acquired any companies that we've invested in over the population. I think we've got about the low 40s of active portfolio in the United States, and probably about in the low 50s in terms of what we've done cumulatively in the U.S., and then sort of maybe 80 or 90 globally.
That's a lot.
So we,
it's a great
we
amount.
can do a lot because
Right.
we've been blessed with a big mandate and the ability to execute that and the resources to do that.
I'm just curious, as a follow-up question, how often do you take a board seat on the companies that you invest in?
It all depends on, sort of check size, a prominence in the round, a lead, follow, a variety of different considerations. Do we add value? What do we bring to a board? I mean, a board of VCs is not necessarily always a great board, so it really just depends on the dynamics. But we do take board seats. Some CVCs really, are doing only observer seats. So yeah.
It's great. Yeah, I'm sure you add a lot of value.
That's my case.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. So because this is a CVC conference, I think maybe turning to kind of more of the fund and fund management or growth, maybe there's part of the story that you can tell us about how you kind of, for people who are interested in kind of growing their own funds internally, and how do you tell a story internally that leads to a $7 billion fund? Not everyone can get
so
there,
I'm not
but
the one
some
telling
tips.
the story internally. So, our management in Dhahran and our headquarters is the one telling the story internally, but they're very good at it and they work hard at it. And so I think obviously you have to have really share of mind, and obviously the operating performance, both, all of it, financial and strategic operating performance to make that case. But I think that some of different segments of, we were able to make the case that it's time for a step up and we can really be useful to the corporate. So I think, if you're on the fence, you've got the performance, you've got the team, you've got the returns you need, you've got the strategic returns you need. It's time to step up and make a bigger case and think bigger. Quite often we challenge the entrepreneurs, they're solving sort of smaller problems, can dominate that space and then grow to bigger TAM, SAM, SOM. Why not venture funds doing that? Why not increasing the size or scope or geography or check size? And we made that case, and I think many others can do this. Instead of justifying yourself to the CFO and the CEO, it's making the case that bigger can be better. We're in a tricky part of the cycle, but I think a lot of folks can make that case successfully, and some of that is just confidence to step out and do it. To be honest, I think. But you have to have that share of mind lock in with the C-suite. Otherwise, it doesn't really work.
And how much of the sort of Aramco's net zero goal is kind of viewed as, part of the Aramco venture story? So, how much are they relying on you to help bring that forward?
Oh, well, I mean, it's a really big company with many different avenues to achieve it. We're a small piece of the overall strategy, like to put things in perspective, right? So we're doing as much as we can. We're trying to source and leverage entrepreneurial talent. There's, university collaborations. We have our own research and development centers, a lot of customer conversations on the marketing side of our business, to the end customers. So it's one tool that I think the corporate has. So I wouldn't overstate our importance on that one hand. On the other hand, we hope we can make a real difference.
Yeah. So I think we're about to run out of time. Is there any other sort of closing thoughts, anything before we wrap up that you want to share?
It's been a great journey, and I think the journey kind of continues. So looking forward to co-investing with everyone here in the room and building great things together. I don't really have any other comments other than to say, things may feel dim and gray when it comes to valuations, ability to raise that next round, but cycles come and go, and I'm sure many of us will be here through many cycles, and so yeah, that hopefully.
It's good advice.
Yeah, it's like the joke of the optimist and the pessimist. You have two people in a, two steel mill workers in the 1980s, Soviet, Russia. And the pessimist says things are broken, everything is so bad. And the optimist says, no, things can be far worse. So we're kind of in that spot now, and it'll get better.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here, and thanks everyone for joining us. Thank you.